Thanks for doing the tour with me. I decided to approach the fair from this angle of female artistic position because this is something that we are working on at the Kunstverein, the art center where I'm working in Bonn, in Germany. We have only had women director of the art center, and so we are questioning the history of the center and decided also to question what did women artists brought to the art world. They had to work differently, they have a different approach, so today is maybe not so much going to be about trying to define what is a female artist practice, but more trying to look at the art world from this perspective and also like to give more emphasis on the position of women, because I think they really had a hard time in the art world. At least in Germany it was really incredible. In France and in Italy I think it's a bit different. But I think it's also like how to find your place or your space in such a big situation. So this German artist Andrea Büttner is born in '72. She has been studying in Germany and still lives there. We have two works by her. This is this one film that she also presented at Documenta, the big exhibition that happens every 5 years in Kassel. And this is a film that she made about nuns who are accompanying community. So they don't have like so much of a religious attitude in the everyday basis. It's more based on charity, more based on supporting people who don't have enough to live, but never by building a structure. And I thought that was really interesting in the sense that it's a way to support art that supports people with a faith and with a religious background, but there is no doctrine or no moral or no preaching in the back. They are there, they don't try to control the people. It's the opposite of missionary system. The missionaries will go abroad to give the people like to bring the faith. And they had a mission. There, when they go there, they don't predicate, they don't try to give anything more than just support and human dignity back to these people. So I thought this was also something interesting if you think of the patriarchal-matriarchal system. Patriarchal system is based on structure, authority, hierarchy, and here you really have no hierarchy. These people, they really infiltrate the structures, these people, and they stay with them, they cook for them, they bring them what they need. And it's just about being there and doing something good for the people. So she has been following this group of women. They are called the Little Sisters of Jerusalem. And it's a documentary about their life in the Luna Park. So it's also this kind of entertainment in the background, which is very strange, I think, because you have like all this enjoyment. It's about people having fun, and they are there and they work as nuns in the Luna Park. It's not a monastery, and I really like this contrast also. So she's really attached to very simple methods of production or very simple techniques, a lot of crafting also, like working directly with the materials. We can maybe have a look at the other one. It's a wood cut, and you can see it's very simple from the colors. It's like you have some strange colors in the background, and then on top of it she put like this black print, black ink. And I was also wondering, why did she use this technique that is kind of ancient? It's more something that was used at the beginning of the 20th century by a German expressionist artist like Kirchner. And somehow I like the fact that she's really experimenting with something that is totally unpretentious, very simple, and still has a very strong poesy in it, I think, with this abstract shape. You can imagine whatever you want with it. It's not a work that is trying to give a strong affirmation. It's more quiet, and the work is very quiet, I think. It's very closed in itself. It's very... I think it's like something that you can have next to you. You don't have to think about big concept about it. It's more about the changing color, you think about the layers, you think about the depths, and you don't really need to have a big discourse around it. It's more about something gentle that is offered. And I really think I appreciate more and more this kind of artistic positions where the artist is producing something and really dealing with the materials, and not so much trying to bring an affirmation. and saying, I'm the genius, this is my world, you should enter. No, you're finding your world, this is where maybe there is a dialogue that opens. And you're on an equal foot, I think, with this kind of artist, a little bit more. And that's what I found interesting in that position. So here is Fanny. She's a French-Swiss artist with Iranian origins and born in 1980. So it's 10 years younger than the other artists we just saw before. You can see all the birds on the floor. You can come closer. I think it's also like a piece that can be filled with the people, because then you also get really this contrast between we are alive but they are dead actually, and they're all placed on the border. It's dead birds actually, yeah. It's a little bit, actually that's a nice thing, they're really beautiful colors. They're really warm, cheerful colors, but it's really sad to see them in the corner dead. So you don't really know how to relate to it. You're like, oh, you like the color, but they're like sad. And they're always like on the border, as if someone had pushed them but couldn't remove them. It has something like something happened and we don't exactly know what it is. The artist is working a lot about exotism and what are the borders of our culture and how certain shapes in our daily life are imported from abroad. And for example, these are exotic birds. Now they seem familiar to us because we are so used to see this type of birds. We don't really even question them, but actually 100, 150 years ago, no one knew them. They were like the most exotic birds ever. And for us they became natural because we see them always in the shops where you can buy birds. But this is something very special actually, and I think this gesture is also like reminding us that so many things in our surroundings are actually artificially imported in our world. It's not like these birds were naturally growing up in these regions. So it's the border between things, and now these borders between our culture and foreign cultures or exotic cultures are so porous that, I don't know, for example, like our clothes are probably not made where we live. They're made in China, in Turkey. The food that we eat comes from another country, the bananas we come from somewhere else. So it's like all this, we are part of this circulation of goods and circulation of objects without even questioning it. And I think art is also a really nice or important moment to step out of this constant flux of movement and impressions that we get, and looking at this and being like, I like it and I don't feel so good about it, and you somehow get reflected like about what you're wearing, where you come from, and this taking apart a process that we almost consider as natural, but that has been implanted by economic necessity. So importation, exportation is also part of this. And I think the two images, or relief, you may call them, are also very nice. I invite you to have a look at them by yourself a little bit after. It's silicone actually, so it's not painted. It's a surface of silicone that is, you would see they are not framed, there is no glass, so they're just shiny by themselves. And where we use silicone, for example, in the bathroom, like to isolate things. So you see like the porous border between a foreign culture and our culture. Things are always like pervading inside, and this kind of isolation material. So I think it's a nice response between the image and the sculpture or the installation, between isolation and the attempt to separate things, and then they still are here. So that's where I would end for this artist. You can have a look just because of the materiality of it, and it's a little bit wavy because you don't get a perfectly flat surface. There's small bubbles in it, so you can discover much more in the surface of the image. For example, here you can see. So this artist is an American artist that I just discovered today, so I don't know so much of a background, but I think it's also interesting to try to talk about an artist without knowing so much, but more talking about the encounter that you can make with someone's work. This artist is 37 years old and lives in Chicago, so she's an American painter. And what we see is like between painting but sculpture also, so it's between 2 dimensions, 3 dimension relief and painting. You have here like the black tights, which is a classical woman accessoire, like men don't have so much experience with tights as far as I know. And here you also have like fabric samples. I don't know, I think what interests me is like the materiality of the paintings, that you can see, you can sense the working process. It's not an image that is given to you like that. You receive a flat surface and you take it with you. You sense that you spent a lot of time, that you changed your mind, you can see that. I don't know. For example, you see the different layers. That this comes first and then you have that. And then there was the white line and then the blue line. And in the end she put it down. This was, or maybe it's not in the end because maybe it's in color. But you see like the moments and the working process in it. So I don't know, the way the shape appears is also very interesting because you have different moments. I think that for me this moment is very dense, but it only appears later. And this moment really comes out as the central object of the painting. Probably also because of the cross. This is a classical composition trick. You know, you put a big cross, bulldog inside, in the middle. It's how we are conditioned. And you can see that the artist is playing with these conventions that we have inside of us. And also like the kind of brutality. You have here these really soft moments with the green that is kind of probably dyed. Probably should have used some ink. And the ink just like getting the fabric. But the fabric is really raw. It's not the usual. You can see like here it's natural fabric. It's normally a canvas. You put a layer on top of it before you start to paint. No. Here you sense the material. So it's almost like a sculpture that she had stretched on the canvas.
But it's not actual painting as well.
She made movements to do it. So you could...
It's not properly actual painting.
You can sense the gesture.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you could say that the action painting of the 50s, 60s have had an impact on the practice of younger artists, in the sense that now they dare to do this kind of things, which they would never dare to do in the 30s. So action painting has had an impact, and everyone takes it with him in a different way, I would say. But I love like the safety needles, for example, that they have something very delicate, cute, and a bit clumsy also, because they're trying to hold something. Is it really necessary? Of course not. And then this kind of Indian crown, which also adds a kind of narrative element, because you start to project things on it, and what could you say that it is? It's a déguisement, it has something childish, something of a fantasy of Native American. We are here like... She's living in Chicago, so you also have this questioning among artists, what is our legitimacy on this soil, American soil, because actually we were not there, we were immigrants, and the Indian, Native American Indian, they were the people who were living there that were invaded. So there is always the questioning of identity with the American myth. We are the nation where everything is possible. But is it really like America? Where America does it start from? Is it the Indians? Is it like the migrants who created the myth of America? So this is somehow like, for me, a questioning of the values, and here something more formal with the samples of fabric, where you see that she put some tape, some like really soft paint, blue here, and here more shiny in the black. And these samples are something very abstract that you can get in the catalog. You can see that you have the rules in it. So they were probably in a little book that you could like go through, flip through it, and with this references number. So it's just almost like a frozen moment, actually. These samples are in the book, and you flip through it, and there it's all stopped. And like, who still goes to buy fabrics? I mean, it's very rare that we still do our clothes ourselves. But 50, 60, 80 years ago, you had to, because it was too expensive. So you see like all this shifting. This is probably useless for today, but some years ago it was very important, some decades ago maybe. So I can see from me the fact that she's working with all these layers, different soft moments and more like strong affirmations and different aids, that it has this kind of anthropological thing. You know, she's digging in the layers of our history. Something like that. That would be my impression. I would be interested in knowing also yours, maybe after tour if you want. But that should be, yeah, this archaeological layers system that I see in our work. Okay, just to clarify French art. sculpture, Isabelle Fermat, and she's born in 74, so she's so and okay, what you see are like really delicate light sprayed different colors directly on the wall with a white frame around it. The story of this image is something special and quite unusual. Actually, these are film stills.
No, like film still is the moment where you stop the film, it's a picture. What the artist did was that some years ago she started to work with the
video in a very different way, in the sense that the film is like an image in motion, not a movement, but like an image that alters and transforms during the film. So you could see her, like just her hands spraying paint on paper, or just sometimes just a of the paint coming on the sheet of paper. So you have like this changing colors on the sheet of paper while the film is ongoing. And these colorful elements come from a reflection about money, actually. And money has color. As you've noticed, the euro is each note has a different color. So she did a film using these banknotes and using their shades. So she was projecting different colors of them. To really also think about the money and the banknotes as some object by themselves, and why is it always artists that you have the banknotes, architects? So this was also something that was in the background, and the things that, but also money is an abstract thing because it's the value between the two objects. We don't trade objects against objects, we put money in between because it's more simple. You don't go to the baker with I don't know, with a carrot and say, I give you a carrot, you give me bread. So the object is the immaterial element that links all the others. And this money, this reflection about money went further in the sense that she went to the step of this painting as also being a representation of this phenomena, of this immateriality. And you see these very floating images as some shades of something that is not there anymore. It's the absence of something. And I really love the idea that the film stills are not printed, it's actually that she recreated on the base of a video, the painting, that is a film still. So it's directly on the wall, and you sense also like the wood on the back, it's very rough. So it's still transparent in a way, and with this extreme lightness and delicacy of this. And to know that the idea behind it is
money also makes sense in an art fair, I think. Like, to transfer money into money also. I think this is
a nice commentary in an intelligent way to deal with this work, to present it here in this context. Because yeah, it's an art, it's about art, but it's also about exchanging art and selling and buying, and how you give a piece of art its value. That's also very difficult thing. So I think the work is really this reflection about the value of something also, or the immaterial value of something. This is really funny and stupid. The first time I looked at inside, I thought, oh, they made a book. No. So Vanessa Bini is a British artist. She's 34 years old, so also a rather young artist. You probably haven't, I really picked a position that you may not have heard of, because I think it's a different way to approach the art fair, like with some surprises. So, this name Down South, and this one is a
broken fountain. So you have like this foot which is made out of humid clay, which is covered so that it will never completely dry, so the shape is a bit loose and kind of soft, and it's never there. And the water, I think the water is very sweet. It's just this piece of how do you call it, in serviette.
So she's using a lot of recycled materials, just found on the streets, as you would imagine, with this pipe, for example. And she transferred them and assembled them in different shapes. I think that beyond the kind of joke that you can see in this broken fountain with the water like starting to fall from it, there is also work, a strong will to to think about how we deal with the material world that is surrounding us. And she's really concerned about energy, like renewable energy, about recycling, about overproduction of goods. So the fact that she's using only recycled materials, or materials that she recycles, or used materials that are loaded already with a history, is somehow her way to deal with this social situation. And this is, for example, a can where the oil used to be stored. And she put some coal on the border of it, and you have to look at it inside. I'm not telling more, just that you feel stupid after you realize you could trick by yourself. And so you sense the materiality of these used objects. They're rusty, they're slightly burnt. They feel a little bit weak, I would say. It's like weak materials. They're worn out. They went through so much that they don't have this moment. They're more soft. It's what? It's more material. Yeah. She's also, actually, it's good that you mention it, because she's also like, she looked a lot at Antiprovera also as something that's also inspired her. So it's a way to, I think, to reflect about one's production as being part of a larger thing. Like, she's producing works, but she's only one among other people. Like, we all produce things, and she is one of them. And she gives shape to things that are like useless, but as art. Maybe that's even another discussion. But they mimic something that we have used and that has lost its years. And we could imagine, let's say in 100 years, when we will have no oil anymore on Earth, these shapes, they will be unknown for the children. They will never have seen them because they won't exist anymore. So it's almost like an archaeology of a disappearing system, when water will be so rarefied because drinkable water will have disappeared. Maybe this will be the memory of a fountain, because we will not be allowed anymore to use fountains because the water will be so precious and so rare. So I think this is also like talking about a system of value. We think water is just there and it's so natural, but maybe it's something very valuable and precious. And maybe it's important to like be remembered of it. And I think in a very unpretentious way and in a very humorous way also. She really plays with this. And maybe the last thing that I really like about her work is the way she's playing with very obvious tricks. It's like the water coming from the pipe is this like towel dyed in blue, okay? And when you look in there, you think there is a hole for a half a second, and then you realize it's a mirror, and then you look at yourself. And I like this. I got remembered. Yeah, of course we love illusion. You know, we love trompe-l'œil. We love all this like being enchanted by an image. So when you look, you're like, oh, a hole. Oh no, it's not. And she's playing a little bit with this enjoyment that we have in tricking ourselves and inventing fantasy worlds.
Art also.
Art, totally. Yeah. That's the whole purpose of art. Enjoyment about art is this moment of allure and of illusion, actually. It's also about illusion, I would say, which is a very classical theme, but it's also very enjoyable. Here in the small room there is a Serbian artist who was born in '79. He's also rather young. And yeah, the room is quite small, so I will tell a little bit about the idea behind it, and then you can have a look by yourself. The video is also quite short, I think. So it's a bit of a repetition. So it's all about the training. The artist, on the video you see one man that is being filmed while he's trying to convey an accent or way of talking. So you see like his hand gestures trying to communicate a verbal language with accent. And it's all this kind of how the body language and the accent and the inflections of the voice are related. So it's somehow very physical and very abstract at the same time. And it's this training how to pronounce things, not to get read after accent in a language. So it's about erasing like your personal, like where you come from. So that when you talk, people don't get your background anymore. Which is brutal, I think, because the way we talk, especially in Italy, you have so many accents and quite a few dialects also. And this is like something that really allows you to know where you're coming from. So in this moment when you decide to erase your accent, no one knows where you come from. You become somehow like apatride. You know, like you lose your roots in the language. And this is also like kind of, yeah. I think it's a brutal gesture to go for this. I think it's not so far from the birds that we saw before, actually. You know, like these birds being brought to a country where they don't belong to, or trying to lose your roots. I think lots of work have to do with this questioning the roots of where we come from. And this process of getting rid of your accent is something that alters your identity, of course. So what you see there is the gesture that he makes to express the change of the modulation of the voice in order to speak the proper way. And what is the proper way? I mean, yeah, also in France you have very different accents, and I remember like my grandmother comes from the south of France, and I remember that I really used to tell her, no, you don't say bang, you say ban. And I didn't understand what it meant, why it was different. And this understanding and the respect of this difference is also something very important for the balance of society. So the idea that you can make a class to erase, or make it a course to erase your accent, to erase your personality, is something incredible, I would say. So I will just let you have a look. And Fanny Gonella is an Austrian artist, and she's already dead, so it's an historical position. In Austria, it's very special, the artistic scene there, because during the Second World War they were annexed by Germany, but actually they were quite happy about it. And after that there was no political discourse about it, no political reflection, how to really find yourself after such a traumatic experience as the Third Reich. So what they Austria went on as if nothing had happened. But then the younger generation of artists really had the extreme need to question the society and question this convention and questions this taboo actually in the society. And you have a lot of Austrian artists from that time who worked with the body, like the Viennese actionists, who covered themselves with blood, with paint, with piece, with everything. The more disgusting, the best. They really wanted to confront the people, to give like the whole society a wake-up call and tell them, people, what happened in this country? No one is talking about it. We're all doing as if everything was normal, but it's not. And let's provoke the bourgeois society and tell them to question like where we are standing. Otherwise, how can you go on if you don't know what happened before? So Fanny Export is not as radical as them, but she's part of this Austrian tradition of work with the body. I think I also chose to talk about her in reaction to Martina Abramovic, because Martina Abramovic is extremely famous. She had this solo shows everywhere. I think in Italy she's also very present. And to me, it's a personal thing. It's open to debate. But I think I have a conflict with Martina Abramovic because she's very much in an authoritarian position. She's putting the people in this kind of violent body experience, with putting herself on the foreground and making kind of authoritative gesture. And I don't know if it's the best way to question your body and to question the roles in the society, to make more authority, to deal with it in a very definitive way. And what I like about Fanny Export is that she has this kind of humor. If there is this one very famous piece that she did at the Venice Biennial in Venice, where she was wearing some kind of box in front of her, and there she was naked, and every man who wanted could touch her boobs. And I think, wow, I mean, it's very private and it's disgusting, but then excuse me, but the men were all like queuing very happily behind it. Yeah, it shows a lot. I mean, just by activating certain processes and certain phenomena of desire in the society, she was revealing the people back to themselves. So I think it's much more subtle she does, because what she's using is the inner constructions that we have, and she's pulling the triggers. But she's not telling you this is like this or like that. She's like, I'm there, you can come and see what happens. And I kind of like this this very nuanced approach, or more suggestive approach. For example, here you see her, she's leaning on a wooden structure on the street, and the text under says, "Der Mensch als Ornament." It's something like the human being as an ornament.
there are two different things in that. For example, in Austria, there was this very famous architect, Adolf Loos, that made this book, Crime and Ornament. He was very purist, as you can imagine, Crime and Ornament. So it's a reflection about this very purist thing, crime and ornament, and the human being as an ornament. But I think, and that's my personal interpretation, also the woman as an ornament for the man. So it's like in which way your body is an object of desire for the other. No, you can project something on someone else's body, and you become the reflection of the desire of the others. Or you adapt yourself, you fit in society. Like, for example, what she's doing, where she's leaning on the floor and she's embracing the corner of a building. It's a desperate and literal attempt to fit society. And I think it's really sad and beautiful at the same time, that she's like, this is what is expected of me, to fit society. Okay, let's do it, and let's show you how absurd it is, how much it is a denial of yourself. So, like in this very simple gesture, she's showing like how destructive these expectations from society toward human being can be. Of course, I'm not saying that is all wrong, because you have to deal with each other, so you have to follow certain rules in order to live together. But the injunctions, if you push them to the far end, she's revealing some of the absurdity of this. And yeah, I mean, in films you can also like come back and see them by yourself. But I like her capacity to put herself into question and to demystify maybe also like this cliché or images that we have. So this is the Austrian lady, and then we're going to the German lady, and then you will see the difference. Okay, so before we had like some kind of humorous position. The Viennese are really famous for their humor. It has a special name even. It's called the Schmäh. Very strange. So there was some humor in her, like doing this very literal gesture, leaning against a building to show the absurdity. And this is Hanne Darboven, German artist who already passed away also. A very important figure. You can see from the formal level the connection with conceptual art. Squares, repetition, reduced variety in the language. It's a lot of numbers also. So it's very distanciated. There is, you would say at the first look, nothing personal about it. You may be reminded of, I don't know, Ankawara postcards that he sends every day, I'm still alive, or these kind of things. And here it's also about counting time. So I think counting time is like, of course, every day you're getting closer to your days, but each day you're still alive. So it's each time like a proof that you are there and you are active and you are doing something, you're breathing, your time is passing by and you're going along with it. So here it's like every day is a certain amount of days in the year. So each time she took a page from the calendar and glued it on the paper. So it's a collage. But when you look closer, actually the background, which is handmade with these little waves, it's actually a copy. It's a photocopy. So she photocopied the background as many times as she needed, and she glued. So this is the variation part, and this is the continuous part. The handmade, the hand-drawn part is the constant, and the variation is given by the calendar that is machine printed. I really like this kind of contradiction in a way, that what she could do by herself is constant. The variation comes from the given, from outside. It doesn't come from her. So there she made Tagesrechnung. It would be something like the accounting of the day, and today is, and then there is the day, the number of the day, and then the number of the month. So October, so it's number 10, and then the year, 7 plus 6, so it's 36 when you add them all together. And the day after is the 14th, so you have 14 plus 10 for October, 7 plus 6 for the year, and it's 37. So it's like reducing the flux of time, the flux of life to numbers, to this absurdity. And also somehow like trying to find the, I don't know if it's the human variation, or like where is the human space in the calendar? It has to be filled in by each of us. But this is a grid that you receive. And this is the, I think like if you think of this piece made in 76, she has been working a lot about this also with music notations, for example. so she was really interested in these codes of language, or codes of time, codes of music, codes of words, and how these things condition our apprehension and understanding of reality and of the surrounding. And yeah, the only variations are the little colors for the Sundays. I don't know, this is my impression when I looked at it. I was very, I had some resistance against the work at the beginning, because I was like, okay, I get it, you know, you like numbers, repetition, it's like the others. But then there is this one piece there that we should really have a look at, because this is more of a drawing, and this is like a sketch. And usually when artists do sketch, then you get it. Then you have this aha moment. And it's called Perforation Construction. It's from 66, 67. And there you see, like, imagine at that time, like, Sol Lewitt doing his wall drawings with all of these lines. But here, to me, it's always a little bit like going wrong, like, dum, dum. The lines are not completely parallel. So she's using this millimeter paper and then working on the variations. She's building up a rhythm. It's almost like someone is building, like, I don't know, for a music piece, it would be like the bass line. Huh? La quoi? La mélodie. Yeah, maybe this would be the bass line, and this would be the melody. But the melody would still be kind of minimal. Like, dum, 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 dum. And I think it's about reflecting about the space between the lines. Just like the freedom that you have between the dates that are added. Just about this, I think, like, if you think of the 60s, 70s, and this really huge movement, at least in America, in the society of this baby boom and all this generation of people who started to change and transform society, and this first ideas of individualization. People thought, okay, I could become whenever I want, whoever I want, especially in America. And this idea of defining yourself and changing the structures and the rules in the society also at that time. I think this is also enough time to redefine what is a structure to me. And you see that it's not the grid anymore that is regular, but there is like, it's like some variations. I really see a melody, or to me it has a lot to do with sound. With a kind of variation that you can imagine. It's still lines, it's still straight, but it's alternating. You can really jump from one to the other. It's as if like it was a coded language almost. Like, I don't know, there is some kind of coded beauty in it. And it was also maybe, and to go back to the topic of women artists, it's maybe something where, I don't know, I think that conceptual art was classically art that was where you had only male artists, only men. And it was an art dominated by ideas, where the idea would guide to the form. And many women artists work the other way around, in the sense that they go from the materiality, they go from the shape, they go from the substance of the material, and out of it produce shape. This is not. So it's a little note of contradiction, but it's also one of the very courageous women who said, okay, there are only men among themselves, but I'm going to play with it. I'm going to go for it, and why should I not do it? And I don't know, I mean, I think for us now today it's difficult to realize how competitive it was, and how it was really difficult for women to enter this big museum shows. And also back then you had very small, very few structures. You didn't have any art fairs back then. You had very little galleries, few art centers. But so the art world was very small, so you had very little space for you to go on and to develop a career. So you really had to work hard on it. And now today we have like one artistic event after the other, and I think it's great. It's a lot, and maybe it's too much, but it's also totally fine, because through that a new generation comes out and new possibilities unfold. But I think doing this gesture back in the 60s was a very courageous posture. And yeah, I think that I will end on that note. And if you have any questions, you're welcome, and otherwise thank you for your patience.